Hi, this is Alex, and if you love music, you're at the right place because we're all about albums. Before we start today's video, I want to go over last video's unknown album. The first one, very famous album, 1969, The Beatles, Abbey Road. And there it is, the blue blurred out dress, and there's the title. If you don't believe me, I'll flip it over, and there is the album cover. So that's it, Beatles, Abbey Road. Hope you got that one. That actually was ended the year as a #1 album. It hit the Billboard #1 album in 1969 on November 1st and stayed there pretty much till the end of the year. And if you want to know, it knocked out, I believe, Led Zeppelin II album. So that was a big album as well. The second unknown album is that sock right there. So if you got this one, congratulations. This is the Billie Eilish album. It was the #1 selling album of 2019. Therefore, I thought you'd probably have a chance to get this one. If you did, congrats. It was a little bit on the hard side, but you know, can't make them all easy. Okay, I also showed you two album covers from the back side from my first video, and that was the added bonus, can you get it? Well, here's the first one. That was the back album cover that I showed, and it is a very famous album from 1975. It is Bob Seger live with the Silver Bullet Band. Why this album is important? Well, this album is what propelled Bob Seger's career into stardom, and he became a household name. Prior to this, he had a few albums, not very well known, but after this album was released, he became a huge star. Finally, the other album that I showed the back cover is this one right here. And this is the alternate back cover to the Rolling Stones 1968 album, Beggar's Banquet. The original Beggar's Banquet album cover, which is actually this, was somewhat offensive to the record label, so they put out a plain one that just said scripted the Rolling Stones Beggar's Banquet, RSVP on the bottom. This, however, is the alternate take cover, and if you buy the CD, this is what you get. If you buy the album, you get the other plain Jane version. For today's unknown albums, we're going to have two again, and here they are. Here's the first one. Okay, and see how you do on the second one. Okay, put your comments down below, see if you think you got them right. I will review the answers on the next video. Today's topic for my video is the 50th anniversary album celebration. So I was going to pick an album that came out in 1970 and review it and look back on the album and see what we think 50 years later. So I had so many albums to pick from. 1970 was one of the great years of albums, and I could have picked one of many. I could have picked Jimi Hendrix's Band of Gypsies, The Who's great live album, Live at Leeds. Some people consider that the best live album ever recorded. Derek and the Dominoes, Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Deja Vu, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and on and on and on. Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and one of the top-selling albums of 1970, Van Morrison's Moondance. However, I did not pick any of those albums. They have been reviews endlessly, and even though it's the 50th anniversary, I wanted to pick another album. An album that did chart in the 1970s. It did not reach a very high position. I believe its top position at one time made it to number 26 on the charts. And the album is Emitt Rhodes' self-titled album, 1970, on the ABC Dunhill label. Now, a little bit about Emitt Rhodes. Who is Emitt Rhodes? Well, he was a California musician living in Hawthorne, California. He, in the 1960s, was in local bands that had some notoriety. The Palace Guard was the first band, and later on in the 60s, he was in a band called the Merry-Go-Round, and he was basically the main frontman for the Merry-Go-Round, and they had two minor hits off of one of their albums called Live and You're a Very Lovely Woman. They were really not national hits, but they were local hits. So in 1969, there was, as usual, trouble in the band. The band broke up, and Emitt Rhodes decided to go on a solo project, and he actually got signed by A&M Records. A&M Records produced the album. It was called The American Dream. This album was shelved and didn't appear for a while. He was frustrated, so he went to work and on his own in a home studio with some old recording equipment, the Ampex 4-track player to be exact. He went out and recorded 12 beautiful, amazing songs on his self-titled album. He not only wrote all the songs, he sang all the vocals, he played all the instruments. No one was a guest. He did the whole thing. However, he did have a recording engineer to help him out, but basically he did everything. It was a labor of love. And it came out in 1970, as we know. It reached number 29 on the charts, and he had a minor hit single called Fresh as a Daisy. I don't know if you remember that song. It came out up to I think it reached the number 54 spot on the chart, so not quite in the top 40, but almost made it. This album came out to critical acclaim. It was a gorgeous record. Now, the album was a very Beatles-sounding record, so much so that a lot of the media and the hubbub was, this is really a Beatles album, and Paul McCartney singing the lead vocals. And if you actually listen to this album, you will notice that, hey, they're right. It really sounds like the Beatles recorded this album and Paul McCartney is singing. So just listen to the album and you'll get it right away. This album is probably not only one of the best albums to come out in 1970, that sort of went somewhat unheralded, but probably one of the best albums of the entire decade of the 1970s. I really, really recommend you listen to this album. And if you're a Beatles fan, this is a must listen. One final note on Emitt Rhodes. He went on to record 2 more albums for ABC, Dunhill, and they were Mirror, that came out in 1971, and his final album, Farewell to Paradise, in 1973. Both of these albums did not do quite as well as the first album. And he ran into some legal trouble. He was under contract for ABC Dunhill to record 6 albums in a 3-year time span, but he only got to record 3 albums in the 3-year time period. So he was sued by ABC Dunhill because he was legally out of contract with them. And the reason being that Emitt Rhodes did everything on all the albums, so obviously it took a lot longer to make these albums in a home studio. All in all, a fabulous record, truly one that you should hunt if you're a vinyl junkie. They're still available out there in the used record bins. Otherwise, it's a really great download. Emitt Rhodes then went on to become a engineer and producer for Electrosylum Records, and otherwise he disappeared. But then in 2016, out of nowhere, he released an album called Rainbow's End, and it did reach the top 200 and made number 150 in the record charts. A good record, not great record, not like this record, his self-titled Emitt Rhodes album. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, press on the subscribe button below, and I'll look for some of your comments. As always, this is Alex with All About Albums. Have a great day, and remember, keep them spinning.